Do you keep your savings in a savings account or do you keep it in a current account? If you keep it in a current account, then you are not alone. There are more than 12.5 million Brits who keep their savings in a current account. That is nearly a third of the population. Now that is actually crazy. And the reason it's crazy is because you will be earning no interest on that money, because almost always these accounts give you nearly 0 to less than 1% in terms of interest on the savings. So you're kind of doing yourself a disservice. So basically what you want to do is to get that money out and into a savings account. Now, it may not be obvious to everybody as to why you would want to earn interest on your savings. And one of the reasons is inflation. Every year, the cost of goods and services rise by about 2%. Now, I know in the past we've had runaway inflation, but in the main, what we target in the UK and probably across the world is around 2% inflation. So that basically means that goods and services increase by about 2%. So you need your pay to increase by about 2% just to keep up with inflation. Now, if you're keeping your money in a savings account and you're getting almost zero in terms of interest, the more money you keep in a savings account, the more the purchasing power of that money gets eroded. So for example, you have £5,000 in a savings account, earning almost next to zero in terms of interest. That money is going to have less purchasing power than when you started. There are way better options out there. And you don't have to be an expert to earn extra money on the money that you have already earned. You've already paid taxes on it. Why not try to make that money work harder? Well, I am here and I'm going to help you to figure out ways to make your money work harder. Now, I know a lot of people decide to keep their money in current accounts for various reasons, and most of it is going to be psychological. You want the easy access to that money. But there are other ways to easily access that money. And I'm going to show you the best ways and the best deals to help you maximize your money. Now, one great option for keeping your money accessible is actually finding a bank account that does pay you interest on balances. There are a number of websites that you can find, and I'm just gonna go through an example here. And this is Money Supermarket. And in Money Supermarket, you can search for bank accounts that actually pay you interest. Not only will they pay you to switch, but they'll also pay you a decent rate of interest. Now, typically, if they pay you to switch, they don't typically have great interest rates, but you have to research and find the best bank account for you. But in the main, if you find a bank account that does offer you interest on your credit balance, then you're winning. Starling Bank, for example, does offer roughly about 3.23% on interest. Now compare that obviously to other bank accounts where you can get maybe 5% interest. So Starling Bank does give you about 3.2% on your credit balance, which I think is pretty good for a current account, but there may be better deals out there. Now in the Starling Bank app, and the same with Monzo, you can create pots, and actually the same with NatWest because I actually bank with all three. But in all of them, you can create pots where you can save money to specific goals. Now the reason I like the Starling Bank is because of the 3.23% interest rate, and because they have the pots. I think they were the first innovators of these sort of savings pots. And what you do is you create your different savings pots for various different reasons, but you will earn a credit balance across everything that's in your banking portfolio, across all of the different pots that you have. Right now, Starling is offering 3.25% interest on balances up to 85,000. And the great thing about Starling Bank, and actually a lot of banks do this, is that you can create savings pots. And I bank with a number of different banks, and a lot of them do offer this. So by creating the different pots, you can save towards short-term goals while also earning 3.25% interest. Now that's just an example of a current account that is offering interest on balances. But let's have a look at actual savings accounts. So you have things like high interest savings account. They will usually guarantee you a percentage interest rate. Now the best ones, typically you have to be a customer of the bank, but there probably are some banks that offer higher, but I would always say look to a aggregator like Money Saving Expert or Money Supermarket or Confused.com or any one of those in order to find the best deals. Now, the thing you need to watch out for is that some of them will charge you for withdrawals. So just bear in mind that if there is a fixed period in which they are offering you that interest rate, then the likelihood is you either won't be able to withdraw that money at all within a year, or there will be a limit on the number of withdrawals, or if you go over that, there will be penalties. With any interest that you earn on cash in things like a savings account or in a current account, there is an actual limit for the amount of interest that you can earn. Now, because of the quirks of the way in which we are taxed, it means that although you do start out with £5,000 as the maximum you can earn in interest, if you actually have a job or you have some other form of income, you start to get taxed at your marginal rate. And this is what is called a personal savings allowance. So with the personal savings allowance, the maximum interest you can earn is £1,000 before you start getting taxed at your marginal rate or your personal tax band. So in the UK, we have tax bands starting from basic rate, higher rate, and additional rate. So the basic rate is if you earn less than, I think it's like £50,000 or £52,000 a year, then anything above that, you get taxed 40%. And once you get to 125, then you're taxed, I think, 45%. If you are a basic rate taxpayer, then the maximum you can earn is £1,000. Once you start earning more than £1,000 in interest, then you're looking at £500. And then once you are at the additional rate, it's zero. If you are a higher rate taxpayer like me, then it doesn't make sense to try and earn £1,000 of interest inside a savings account or a current account, because you will have to pay tax on that. It is better for me to put that into an ISA. So let me give you a live example. If you put your money into a current account or a normal savings account and you earn £500 in interest, essentially you would need to save £8,333.33. Now, if you are able to save that amount of money, then it's probably preferable for you to put that into an ISA. With ISAs, you have two different options. One is a cash ISA, and right now a lot of banks and building societies are offering about 5% interest rate on the cash ISA.
Even trading apps like Trading 212 are offering interest on cash, so roughly about 5% as of the time of making this video.
Now, with all of the ISAs, there are stocks and shares ISA options. So that is essentially where you buy stocks or funds in the market. So for example, you could buy Apple, or you could buy, I don't know, Amazon, Google, whatever, any of those stocks inside the wrapper of the stocks and shares ISA, and any gains that you make, you wouldn't have to pay tax. But there are various websites that you can check. So which is another example, or go compare. Now, if you have a more risky appetite, you could put that money into a stocks and shares ISA. So £8,000 into a stocks and shares ISA. And assuming that you are able to generate between 8 to 10% in return, so you wouldn't have to pay any tax on it, because otherwise you'd be paying 40% on anything above the £500. Why would you do that? This is a great way of making money tax-free. With a stocks and shares ISA, you can put a maximum of £20,000 into that account every year. And anything that you gain in terms of returns on your investment is tax-free. Now, keep in mind that the annual allowance of £20,000 starts from the beginning of April and finishes at the end of the tax year, 31st of March. In a stocks and shares ISA, you can buy any stock from across the global market, and you can also buy bonds, or you can buy funds. Now, typically I prefer to buy funds, so I will usually choose an index fund or an index tracker. So I think it's important at this point to break down what some of these terms mean. So a fund is a pool of money collected from a range of investors. Now, there are fund managers, which are actual people who will manage that fund, or a algorithm or some kind of computer program will pick funds for you. It's a great way of diversifying your investments, because it means you're not putting all of your money into one basket. Like, let's say, for example, you decided to bet all on Apple, for example, and things went wrong, then you would possibly lose all your money and then some. And that's the risk always with investing in funds, is that the value of your investments, i.e. the amount that you put in, can go down as well as up. So you could lose some and you could win some, sometimes big. And you could also lose some, sometimes very big too. So I mentioned also index fund. So what is an index fund? So an index fund is a type of fund that follows a specific index, like the S&P 500, for example, or the FTSE 100, or the Nikkei, or the Dow Jones, all those terms that you might have heard before. So instead of trying to pick like the best stocks, which obviously is a very hard thing to do, particularly if you have no experience in this area, and even people who have experience are not always successful. Now that we've explained what a fund is and we've explained what an index is, let's talk about why it's a great choice. Somebody else has already done the hard work for you to pick the best stocks within the indices. The fees are typically quite low, so sub 0.5% if you find a good one, and it provides some form of consistency, i.e. you're matching the performance of the market, which has historically gone up over time. And the great thing is you don't have to think about it. You don't have to keep like changing the different funds within a portfolio. Somebody else is doing all that hard work for you. You can literally set and forget. Now, what would be some good index funds to consider? Now, I am not a financial advisor. I am only telling you what I invest in. So I invest in the Vanguard Life Strategy. I invest in the Legal & General European Index, and I also invest in the Legal & General International Index. I invest the last two, the Legal & General one, through Hargreaves Lansdown, and the Life Strategy I do directly through Vanguard. Now, premium bonds I know does get a bit of a bad rap from quite a lot of people, and the reason is that with premium bonds you typically don't earn any interest. So the whole point of a bond is that you are lending money to the government, and in exchange there sometimes is a percentage interest rate that they will guarantee you. However, with premium bonds, the interest is replaced by a lottery. The maximum you can earn or the maximum you can win is £1 million. So that's great. However, your chances of winning it are very low, but that £1 million is tax-free. So if you save into premium bonds, then you might win. The maximum you can put into premium bonds is £50,000. I hope that has been super helpful to anyone who is thinking about where else they can put their savings rather than in a current account. As always, I am not a financial advisor. Do what works for you, but take the information that you learn and you research for yourself to make the right decision for you. Now, if you did enjoy this video and you found it helpful, drop me a comment, make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you for the next video. Bye.